Radio Free Skaro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 698. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in San Jose.
And Chris in Edmonton.
The three of us can never agree to stay in the same place at the same time. Nope.
No, sir.
Got to move around. I'm glad I'm back home. I'm glad I'm talking to you two chaps again because last week's news was an adventure at 1 a.m. in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yes. You did yeoman's work, sir. Yeoman's work.
Well, thank you. There was let me tell you, when you are the only one in the airport using the airport Wi-Fi, it is the best Wi-Fi on earth. It was so fast.
And it only happens at 1 a.m. on a Friday.
It only does. I know. I was actually like, when I sort of like, oh, wow, look at the internet speed. This is crazy. Maybe Warren and Chris are around. Maybe we could do this together. And I look at the clock. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, nah, they're probably, even with the time change, even though it's only 11 p.m. in Vancouver. So honestly, before I press record, I didn't suggest, I didn't like ask you to like, hey, are you both up for this? I just sort of like sent an email and then waited.
Yeah, I was in fact asleep. I saw it the next morning.
Oh, you did? Okay. Like I literally just sort of waited and thinking, just in case, maybe they'll reply and want to join. But no, they didn't. So
No.
But we got it done. And now we're back. And Warren's in San Jose, which is halfway between Vancouver and San Diego, where Comic-Con is happening.
I'm nowhere near that. I'm hanging out at my friend Ben and Brian's place, which is a miniature Comic-Con of its own. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Brian because I packed the wrong mic cable and he had the right one.
I want to point out that that everything is sort of coming full circle, and this might be because I've suggested a new microphone for Warren to buy for his traveling mic, so to speak. But the mic you are talking on right now, Warren, was the microphone that we were all talking on when we first met Meta at Gallifrey 1 in 2009.
That's true. It is the very one.
That is a 10-year-old USB microphone, the original Blue Snowball. Yeah.
Yeah, more than.
Man.
OG and kind of a piece of crap now, but honestly.
The one we set up in Champions to talk to Rob Shearman and Tacky on TV boys and Phil Ford and Toby Haydock.
Yeah,
I think that was my mic. I was the first guy to get one.
It was your mic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You have to...
I bought a Snowball that summer, but that was like 6 months later. And I still have it. It still works fine. But
I think we have, between Erica and myself, I think we have 5.
Yeah, you had a bunch because there were those times at Gallifrey 1 when we'd set up in the lobby and we were using certain software that supported 5.1 audio, which to us meant 6 microphones as separate tracks. So
it also meant nothing but people eyeballing the microphones because for some reason the spherical shape just hypnotizes people to this day.
They look like oud balls. That was the thing.
That's true.
They're like, and they've been talking into oud balls at a Doctor Who convention. Yeah, it's going to turn some heads. So
this episode of Radio Free Skaro not brought to you by Blue Microphone.
No.
More on that later.
Yeah, more on that. But hey, on this, so there's no Doctor Who panel. BBC America panel certainly at Comic-Con. There is like Titan Comics has something on the Sunday. So like we had a whole episode because we in years past we sort of thought okay there might be some news but we'll still do like a commentary or something that week and then like all the news happened at Comic-Con and so we had a big massive episode. So in recent years we decided to say no for Comic-Con it's one episode because everything's happening that weekend and so we did the same. We did the same for this week as well as next week in a way. We plan to fluid links next week for all the stuff, all the questions that I'm sure you would have had or comments about the stuff that was announced at San Diego Comic-Con. We're still doing the fluid links. Next week, fluid links, everyone, because we have done it in a while, either way, San Diego Comic-Con or not. But in lieu of the giant news dump that Comic-Con is, instead now it's just a dump.
Oh,
Whoa!
Wow.
I'm kidding. I've never been there. I can't say that.
I have, and it's not a dump. It's fine.
No. Rob Ritchie, who is a 3D animator and compositor on a lot of the recent animated Doctor Who stories like The Power of the Daleks and Macra and Shada and upcoming The Faceless Ones. And he's also done some of the revamped effects on the Blu-rays, like for The Planet of the Daleks and the upcoming Terror of the Vervoids. In fact, we were slightly delayed when on our interview because he was working on some last-minute fixes for the Vervoids. So that adds some verisimilitude, I suppose, to quote Toby Haydock.
and
So
also more on that later too.
Yeah, that's true. Everything's a preview. Everything's a preview this episode.
Kinda.
Yep. So that's coming up later on. But I didn't know that apparently it's the 50th anniversary of San Diego Comic-Con too this year. This is the 50th one. That's quite something, actually. 50 years, like 1969. A bunch of nerds decided to get together and talk about comic books. And back then, it was probably all comic books. I'm thinking, right?
Probably.
You may be belittling a fine institution, actually.
Well, I'm also like, I don't think it was always, maybe it was always this weekend. I haven't done the research on this, but if it was in fact like this same sort of like a loose timing of the weekend, that they decided, you know what we should do? Have a comic convention the same weekend that man lands on the moon, because it's the 50th anniversary of the moon landing.
I think that's a pretty good Venn diagram.
Yeah, that's like, because no one's going to want to know about that. They're going to want to come here and talk about Captain What's-His-Name and Super Jazz and other things.
First of all, Super Jazz, I would read that comic. And secondly, I'm pretty sure the people at San Diego Comic-Con were the ideal viewers of said event.
Yeah, I know. So why would they like gather? Why would, unless it was like at a different
Well, they
part
probably
of the
had TVs at Comic-Con.
Warren, now you say that as if we could just like borrow a TV. These are the days when TVs were bigger than mainframe computers, and mainframe computers were half the size of a Saturn V rocket.
Have you ever known enterprising, smelly nerds who wouldn't do such a thing, who wouldn't drag a giant cabinet-sized wood ornate TV onto a stage so everybody could watch the moon landing? I'm pretty sure that would happen.
That's a good point.
These are
With one nerd just holding the rabbit ears?
These are the days often when TVs were like 12 inches.
No, they were. I think they were close to 19 then, weren't they? Maybe they were close.
Yeah, you could get 20. We had a 19-inch TV when I was a kid, so yeah.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like a luxury television or anything.
And you were born, what, about a year and a half after the moon landing.
Yeah.
So.
About that, yeah, 1970. So yeah, a year and a half.
Warren's older than us. I was. I'm kind of caught up in moon landing mania right now. I just listened to episode 1 of 13 Minutes to the Moon, the BBC podcast about it. It's pretty good. I hope that my interest in the moon landing carries through to listen to the other 12 episodes or however many there are. But I found it fascinating. I watched the CBS live coverage, not the live coverage obviously, but like basically the live stream, I guess, of back in 1969 with like Walter Cronkite and the astronaut from the Mercury Project, who I can't remember who was his color commentator. And let me tell you, it was fascinating because, nowadays they would probably like have cameras inside Mission Control, have a satellite image. There would be more.
There'd be cameras on the ship itself, yeah.
There'd be cameras on the ship itself. But back in 1969, the only camera they had access to was the little camera that flipped down in the moon lander to catch Neil Armstrong's walking on the moon. And
it was like 100 lines of resolution or something.
Exactly. So this was fascinating. So basically, the entire lead up to the moon lander landing on the moon was a mixture of CSO shots of a model over top of like a model moonshot, and then there was some animation as well, like when they were sort of like doing rocket phases. And then once the moon landed, the lander landed on the moon, they cut to this this like miniature set of the Moonlander just sitting there on the set, and they just had cameras like sort of like panning it and sort of like just static shots of this. And so it was just literally model footage for the first like 40 odd minutes of this clip until finally like literally 2 minutes before Neil Armstrong comes down the ladder, the camera starts working. And this is something that you don't see in the history books, because Walter Cronkite is known for his coverage of many of America's great news moments in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But he's rambling on. Like Neil Armstrong is about to set foot on the moon, and Cronkite's going, "Well, look at that. A man on the moon on this day, July 20th, 1969." And he literally, as he finishes saying 1969, Neil Armstrong does this famous speech, that's that's a small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. And then Cronkite comes back in. Didn't hear what he said there. It's just like, it was.
But I have to say, like, YouTube has many, many, many faults. Logan Paul et al. Cabals, Nazis, everything else. But I do fall into rabbit holes more often than I'd like to say of watching quote-unquote live footage. Like, I've watched the Kennedy assassination a couple times. Just put it on the background as if it's actually happening. It's pretty cool just to watch the news reaction as it happened.
Yeah.
So basically, we need to set up a new channel for you. Warren reacts to historical news footage.
No, we do not. No, we do not.
Reaction shots to what about reaction shots to reaction shots?
Although just to plug another friend, I would like everyone to Google, not Google, YouTube, Google, whatever, Orson Welles, Eric Fell, Twitch, and watch Orson Welles, in quotes, drunkenly play Fortnite, which a friend of mine here in town did, as Orson Welles.
I don't understand what any of that
I hope he has answers for Mrs. Pell's fish sticks.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he does.
Anyway, congratulations, humanity, on your 50th anniversary of landing on.
What are you doing for an encore? Oh, that's right. Fascism's coming back.
Yeah.
Too political. Doctor Who is too political nowadays.
No, for an encore, you win.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Take that, Harrison Chase. This is a surprising thing. Christopher Eccleston. Remember Christopher Eccleston? How like for years he didn't even want to if you even mentioned Doctor Who, he would get up and walk off the stage or out of the whatever room he was doing an interview for.
He'd be like the reverse Beetlejuice. You say it 3 times and he disappears.
It's exactly what he was. Well, Christopher Eccleston has come around in his older age. I mean, he's still slightly saucy, as you could probably tell by that Instagram video that's been floating around. But Christopher Eccleston is coming to our fair burg, Edmonton, for Edmonton Expo, September 20th to 22nd, although he's going to be there only on the Saturday. This is in addition to he's at London Film and Comic-Con next weekend, and he's in New York Comic-Con in the first weekend of October, and he's going to be in Dallas a couple weeks after that. So yeah, Christopher Eccleston officially on the North American convention circuit. Wow. Didn't think I'd see the day. Didn't think this would happen, I have to tell you. Or maybe I did.
Not in Edmonton, that's for damn sure.
Yeah. I'm just Edmonton's this is his first time that he's going to be in North
Canada.
America. Canada for sure. I think they said first time in Canada. I'm thinking where else has he been in North America? Has he been anywhere?
He has though. I think he has. I'm guessing
know.
anyway.
I don't know.
I mean, he shot The Leftovers in
he's
US,
been here, but I'm talking about a convention.
Conventions, yeah.
Yeah, convention.
Yeah, no, I know.
Dallas? Maybe I'm wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had some side stuff at cons when The Leftovers was still filming in the US.
I don't know. This is a recent, when he did the London thing last year, that was his first thing, and he never did a panel. It was just autographs and photos. That was his limit, and the fact that he's only on the Saturday. I wonder if there will be an interview panel. There usually is. Edmonton Expo usually, if you get a guest in there, they've got a fan panel plus autographs plus photos. So it's going to be a very packed day for the Ninth Doctor. So
Well, last year when I went, it was on the Sunday. So last year for Edmonton Expo, on the Saturday, Matt Smith was there. On the Sunday, David Tennant was there, and you and I, Stephen, we were in attendance at Tennant's panel, getting some pictures and whatnot. But a couple hours before that, He was doing autographs at his desk, booth, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And just a massive lineup of people. Huge. Like hundreds upon hundreds just lining up to get his autograph. It's just like, oh, man.
Yeah. That was big. That was big. And I was surprised. I thought when they got Barrowman and Tennant Smith, I just figured, okay, Calgary had Capaldi the year before. Like, I just sort of figured, well, that about wraps it up for Doctor Who guests,
until Whittaker, yeah.
Until Whittaker, and then wow! So kudos to the team behind Eccleston. Edmonton Expo rather, because Eccleston's going to be there. And we'll be there, of course, covering it. So whatever that is, if there is indeed a panel, we will be there live tweeting the hell out of it and getting some photos.
I know for sure I'm aiming to be there on the Saturday. Thankfully, as it happens, the day that Eccleston is there. So I can't imagine not doing something.
Nope.
Hanging out and listening to him rant about dirty parks. I don't know.
Dirty parks in Manchester. Fun. Good old guy. I'm glad to see that he's he's obviously lightened up enough to come to conventions and perhaps accept the money that they give him for those conventions. But I also like that he's still kind of a bit of a crusty old fart. It makes me happy.
He's like our generation's William Hartnell.
Kind of is actually, yeah.
Because he's now 50. He's now 55, which was Hartnell's age when.
That's right.
When he did the role.
He's looking pretty good for 55.
He is looking 55, yeah. But man, they use the photos obviously of him as TV's Doctor Who for all the appearances, and of course that is like 15 years ago, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. 15 years.
By the way, I saw a chart that shows people referring to Doctor Who like at the very beginning of their tenure as a fan, and somewhere in the middle they go, no, it's the Doctor, and then as they get to like later on when they've seen everything, they start referring it back to as Doctor Who again, just to annoy people.
I 100% did it as trolling, and then Peter Capaldi just did it anyway because that's how he called the character when he was a kid, because that's how everyone called him as he was a kid. So I did it part as troll, and now I just do it in agreement with Peter Capaldi, and now it's just back to trolling.
You have detente. You've negotiated a contract on this.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is too is that I pronounce it just Who, Dr. Who. You can't tell because I'm saying doctor, but I'm actually pronouncing Dr. without the period on there. I'm really trolling
my
him.
Friend Sammy Kelch does it as Doctor Who. Who doesn't want to know more Doctor Who?
I think what
there's a lot of British people who do Dockaroo. Yeah.
Well, I think what we should do, what we should call ourselves as fans of the program, is that we should call ourselves Doctor Whovians, because that just encompasses everything.
How about Der Whovians?
No, because Der Whovians. That sounds like it's German.
Like sort of a line in Flash. You could say for one of us, Der Whovians.
Der Whovians.
It's in the chorus.
I thought perhaps it's the German convention, Der Whovians. Hello. We are Der Whovians. Welcome to...
We take the show very seriously.
Welcome to Stuttgart, yeah. So let's talk about some Blu-ray stuff and DVD stuff, since that's kind of a theme of the podcast, with Rob Ritchie coming on later in the show here. Of course, you folks in the UK are enjoying your John Pertwee season 10 Blu-ray sets. We don't yet have our John Pertwee season 4 Blu-ray sets, which is the same thing apparently. That's coming out in October. God, it's coming out on October 15th. We still have to wait for that. The Macrotera was originally coming out in October as well. It's been delayed to November. In September, in the UK, you get the Colin Baker Trial of a Time Lord is coming out. Finally, it looks like it's appearing on Amazon here in North America on 2 different dates in early December. December 3rd in the States, and then December 10th in Canada. But it's available for pre-order on Amazon.com, but Canada is like dragging their feet a little bit. There's no actual...
That's our national motto. Come on.
Yeah, you can't pre-order it. There's a date of December 10th, but it's early days, I guess. But I suppose if you're waiting 5 months to get the damn thing... You can wait for a price to come along. It's very disappointing. Who can we blame? About this? Because it used to be so good.
We can blame Canada.
Well, we could blame North America. Who's in charge of North America distribution for BBC Worldwide? Because they're letting the side down. Damn it! We used to have like pretty close to day and date things Maybe when Dan Hall was in charge of things on the UK, and now we just don't.
Sometimes we got things months or years later.
Yeah, but towards the end of the DVD run, like we're getting fairly close, like often like within a day, or a week at the very.
But we also had the flip side. So I think of like the TV movie, for example, which came out in Britain ages and ages and ages ago, and then thanks to the morass that is the North American rights and property stuff for who owns what, that took forever for us to get it over here.
Yeah. We've got it now.
Oh, yeah, and the special editions, even the special edition took a while to come out after it came out in the UK, if memory serves.
Mm-hmm. Also in this part of the world, the complete David Tennant Blu-ray set, of which only 4 episodes are in HD. All the rest have been up-res. That's coming out here in North America September 17th. $71.69 on the popular Amazon website. You can pick that up.
Isn't that popular, really?
It kind of is. Well, it's popular amongst consumers, not necessarily amongst workers.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. Is that it? Is that it for DVD news? I think that's it. DVD and Blu-ray. Covered it all.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, this on the BBC YouTube. Let me tell you, BBC YouTube, by the way, posted an 8-minute montage of Malcolm Tucker rants a couple days ago, like on their official BBC, but like full on, uncensored. Brilliant stuff.
Really?
Yeah, brilliant stuff. On their Doctor Who page, the official Doctor Who one, an interview has just been released as we record. This recording is on Thursday, by the way. So if there is any news that happens in San Diego Comic-Con, I'm sure we'll have done an insert by now and it'll be old to you. But there's an interview with Eric Sayward, because both of his novelizations for Resurrection and Revelation of the Daleks are out now. Are they both out now? There's a big giant billboard in the interview that's saying that it is. Yes. With Matthew Sweet. So it's a 10-minute interview. I think a lot of the questions have been submitted by the Doctor Who Facebook page. But yeah, you can watch Eric Sayward talk about stuff with Doctor Who if you wish. We haven't watched it because literally just got posted as we're about to record. But you can watch it by clicking on the link in the show notes at radiofreeskaro.com or your listening device. All right. Big Finish stuff. Got a couple Big Finish stuff before we get on with the show here. The Legacy of Time. That's the big one. That's the big 20th anniversary episode for Big Finish, because it's 20 years of them doing Doctor Who audios. What will have happened? It hasn't happened yet, but they did a whole 24 hours worth of, or is it just 20 hours? 20 hours. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Over the course of the 20th and 21st. So this weekend it happened, and they actually included a little bit of the Legacy of Time in that live stream on their YouTube channel. But it's available. You can buy it now. You can get it. Warren, are you gonna lap this one up here?
I'm thinking I might. Now, this is every single Doctor Who or not.
It's 6.
It's 3rd to the 7th, right?
There's 6
or 8.
Yeah.
3rd to the 8th.
3 through 8. Yeah, 3 through 8. Yeah. So no new series or modern Doctor. It's kind of a throwback in a way. It's like, it's like for one day only, Big Finish's rights expired for the new series, and we can only have classic series.
And there's no 1 and 2, so no David Bradley or what's his name?
Fraser Hines.
Yeah, Fraser Hines.
Fraser Hines.
Who does an okay imitation, but is still very obviously Fraser Hines.
It is kind of, when you know his voice, and you probably do, because he's at conventions a lot. So there you go. That's out now. 6-hour-long story sees characters from the entire history of Doctor Who crossing paths, some for the very first time. Classic and new series Doctor Who will collide. So it's old series Doctors with all, like, there's Kate Stewart in there, and Ingrid Oliver. So anyway,
if I'm looking at this correctly, the cover art looks like it has Group Captain Chunky Gilmore in the bottom right corner next to John Pertwee.
Sure it does, because they do they do a Big Finish series of those cats. Really? Yeah, they do. You knew that.
There's Rachel and Allison from
Remembrance of the Daleks. Yeah,
Okay.
Totally there. Yeah, all there.
I keep forgetting those guys are from Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yeah, they're good. You like that story, Warren? You like Remembrance of the Daleks?
It's one of my few McCoy tolerated stories.
That's what a lot of people say about people who hate.
Just as eloquently, too, actually.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, hats off, Big Finish. 20 years doing it. As I said before, I think in 6 years' time, they'll have matched the longevity of the classic series.
That is utter madness.
And have already surpassed the output, I think.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, in a week. They do more episodes in a week than Doctor Who did in 26 years. So it's, yeah, they do a lot.
It seems like it with some of the massive amounts of announcements we do for their stuff.
Mm-hmm. I know, right? Yeah, it's tough to keep up sometimes. But so we tell you about some of the big ones, like that, and like Donna Noble returning in a new Big Finish release called Donna Noble Kidnapped. It's just Donna Noble in this one, which is really cool. It's a 4-part adventure, so to speak, with 4 different stories written by Jacqueline Rayner, John Dorney, James Goss, and Matt Fitton. Featuring, of course, Catherine Tate, as well as Jacqueline King, who played her mother on the television series, and a whole host of people involved in that. It's coming out May of 2020. Donna Noble Kidnapped. Get it now, or
it's a bit of a wait.
And get it in May of 2020.
In May of 2020, yeah, exactly. So there you go. That is it for the news, everyone. Join us after the break for an interview with Doctor Who 3D animator and compositor Rob Ritchie. Here's a surprise, Chris and Warren. We have a sponsor this episode.
What?
I know, but let me tell you, we wouldn't sell out to just anyone. This episode is sponsored by BBC Audio, the BBC, publishers of hundreds of Doctor Who audiobooks with 2 new releases every month. Every audiobook is performed by an actor who is closely involved with the series, from fan favorites like Tom Baker and David Tennant to iconic voices like Nicholas Briggs and John Coltrane, who are not fan favorites at all. They are not favorited by the fans.
Fan derided, I think you'll find.
Possibly a little bit, but good chaps all. Over the next few weeks here, we'll tell you about some of the audiobooks we've listened to, like Warrior's Gate. Chris, you've listened to a little bit of Warrior's Gate, haven't you?
Yeah, I started in on it today. As much as anything, Stephen Gallagher did a revamp of the script for this audio release, expanding and enhancing the script, and I'm kind of curious to get in on some of those enhancements, because Warrior's Gate is famously not the easiest story to comprehend, and a little bit of enhancement to it is not a bad thing. And the aforementioned John Culshaw is doing the main narration with John Leeson doing the K9 parts. So basically, John Leeson's getting paid a second time to do the same story.
Wow, that is a hell of a racket.
Actor's dream.
That is, yeah. We'll talk in future episodes about other audiobooks from the range, but we thank BBC Audio for helping to support Radio Free Skaro. And I'm joined on the line by Doctor Who Blu-ray and DVD 3D animator and compositor Rob Ritchie. Hello, Rob.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Not bad. We were just discussing about what a 3D animator and compositor is for a job title. I want to know what a 3D animator and compositor is for a job. What is it that for the uninitiated, of which I count myself probably as one? What do you do, Rob?
Well, I cry a lot on a daily basis, I think, at the moment. But no, 3D animator and compositor. So basically, what I do specifically on the animation range is I'll build all of the sets as a 3D model, so we can move a camera around and get whatever angle we wanted. We started doing it a little bit on Power of the Daleks, but not a lot, because Charles Norton, who produced Power of the Daleks, was very keen on having hand-drawn elements, and Charles has always been a fan of hand-drawn elements. So the majority of the sets on Power of the Daleks were hand-drawn from about 2 or 3 different angles for the most part, for all of the main sets. But there was one set that wasn't extensively covered, and that was Lesterson's lab. So I ended up building that as a 3D model because a lot of action took place in that lab, and just having one angle just wasn't going to be doable at all. Mm-hmm. So basically, I build the sets, I move the camera around wherever it's needed, take a picture of that angle, and then the compositing side comes in, where then I'll put a character in place, and if the character interacts with part of the set, I've got to make sure that lines up, and then I've got to light the characters and adjust the levels to make sure that they're supposed to look where they are, and then just give everything a final polish, a little bit of a grade, and then send that off to BBC Worldwide and hope they don't ask for changes.
which frequently I gather is probably not the case.
There's always some amendments that need doing.
So basically, if I'm getting this right, you're basically creating digital versions of an actual set with actual people, and sort of like and you get to choose camera angles and direct things and more or less. Is that right?
Sometimes, I mean, we do tend to have storyboards done beforehand. For instance, on the stories from Power of the Daleks up until the Macra Terror, Charles oversaw the direction. He would refer to the telesnaps where possible. So if we had a telesnap, we would be sure that we'll try and replicate that as close as possible. But for everything in between, it was kind of a bit free rein to just come up with your own sort of direction. And same thing goes on Faceless Ones. Although Charles has taken a bit of a step back from the directing side, it's now been done by a woman called Anne-Marie Walsh, who directed the little Wheel in Space mini episode that went out on the Macra Terror DVD. Mm-hmm. So she is overseeing the directing and sorting out the storyboards, and then I'll get those. And on the most part, they're very accurate, but some sets might throw a little bit of spanner in the works and say, well, it didn't quite turn out the way that you thought it would on the storyboard, so I'll have to do an amend and move an angle to make something work. So I've got a comprehensive storyboard to work from, but not everything always works 100% that way, so I will have to just troubleshoot it and get the angle that works.
Doctor Who, of course, we're going to be talking almost exclusively about Doctor Who during this chat, but that isn't actually where you got your start doing this. It was the Dad's Army recreation from 2014 or whenever it was?
Yeah, 2013 that went out. Or it might have went out 2014, but I was working on it 2013. My start was always from YouTube, so I was doing stuff for YouTube for years, and I mean, all my stuff's still there, and I can go back and look 10, 15 years worth of old stuff and thinking, oh God, that looks terrible. But then again, it's all a learning curve. But so I started doing tests of Daleks from Evil of the Daleks in a sort of cartoon animated style. And Charles Norton spotted these and said, oh, well, I would love to do something like this for something like Power of the Daleks. And then we had a little chat about that, and then that sort of disappeared into the ether for a while, and then the opportunity popped up to do Dad's Army. And Charles was handling Dad's Army, and I think Dad's Army, the animation we did, A Stripe for Fraser, was a good pilot for saying, well, we can do stuff like this for Doctor Who. And then I'd barely finished work on Dad's Army when I had a phone call from Charles to say they want to do Power of the Daleks, and would you be up for doing exactly what you did before on YouTube, but for that. So yeah, Dad's Army, I suppose, was a good stepping stone to get to doing these, but that wasn't the plan. It just accidentally worked out that way.
So, I mean, I suppose Daleks are kind of a natural for this sort of thing because, they are essentially static. You can move them around a lot easier, not have to worry about facial expressions or anything. I mean, is animating Daleks easy? And I suppose, is that why perhaps in your early days of doing this during your own experiments, you chose the Daleks as opposed to something else? Yeah,
well, I mean, I was completely self-taught for 3D animation, and that's still something that's ongoing because I'm still learning new skills in that software on a daily basis. But I never jumped in at the deep end and tried to do character animation. Mm-hmm. And that's something I sort of regret because, I mean, when I was younger and not working all hours of the day, I think I should have done a lot more in terms of tutorials and stuff to try and do character stuff. And I've started doing that now, so I think I'm going to start moving that way at some point. I just need have a bit of downtime from all these jobs. And,
Right.
then I might get the grips a bit more with that, because that would be something I would quite like to do, just a full package in a 3D environment. I mean, that would be a hell of a lot of work, but it's a nice little dream. But yeah, Daleks are fairly straightforward to animate. The only problem is, if you've got a Dalek on screen that's not moving, it doesn't quite look right.
Uh-huh.
So there's always got to be a little bit of movement. For me,
Right.
for classic Daleks, new series ones can sort of get away with it a little bit. But for classic ones, because you would always have the operator inside just twitching and...
Like purposely, too. You know, they were told to, otherwise it just looks like a static prop. So to move around in there, John Scott Martin, come on.
And I mean, I did have great fun just having the Daleks exit in that pod from Power of the Daleks, and when they were going down the ramp, just as soon as they hit the floor at the bottom, just having the eye stalk bounce and the plunger arms and that bounce, just things like that were just, I say, fun to do. I'm sure I hated it at the time, but I thought I was happy with how it looked in the end.
That one is actually interesting because, you know, of course it was intended to be in black and white, and then very late in the game, BBC America decided they wanted a full color version. Is that how it went down?
Yeah, from recollection, because I always knew that this was joint with BBC America, and for quite a while it was only just me dealing with Charles Knorr, the producer. But then I remember having a phone call saying, well, BBC America's think that their audience won't really like a black and white story, so they want it in colour. And by the point that they spoke out about that, everything was pretty much created in black and white. All of the artwork for the sets was intentionally made as black and white. All of the character kits were done as black and white. The only thing that wasn't black and white were any of the sets that I built and the Daleks, because it's just easy enough for me just to turn black and white on in the video editor afterwards. So going back and recolouring all of these elements just to go back and re-export everything was completely out of the question, because we only had 6 months on this, and that's a month an episode, which is just ridiculous, really. I still can't believe that we did it in 6 months. I know that it's got its flaws here and there, but for the timescales that we had, and bear in mind that we say it's a month an episode, it doesn't quite work out that way, because you've still got to have all the time to build all of the characters, so and get all the set pieces done. So realistically, it was probably about, I mean, from my end, about 4 months to put together 6 episodes. Mm-hmm. And I had many a breakdown on that one. Many a breakdown. But yeah, I mean, we have gone from strength to strength with these, and the BBC have gave us a bit more time with each one, so that's been good. And I mean, at the same time, the BBC want to push these out very quickly, which, as a fan, I absolutely love, but as the person working on it, I hate.
I have to say, I'm surprised at the relatively quick release rate of these animated things. You know, if it had Power back in 2015, I think it was, and that we basically had one a year essentially ever since then. Yeah,
and it has been a good steady workflow, really. I mean, normally I have a couple of months in between where it's just downtime, really, because, as I say, that this is just stuff that I do on evenings and weekends, because I do have a full-time job as well. And it's nice. It's nice to have that little bit of a break, because I am pretty much 7 days a week for at least half the year. And this time round, the Faceless ones had the green light before the Macro Terror was even finished, and that was it. That was both exciting and terrifying, because pre-production and artwork had already started on characters while I was still battling with 2 of the episodes, I think. Then I just finished the Macro Terror while I was at Gallifrey 1.
I remember. Well, I remember Gallifrey 1 at any rate, yeah.
Well, yeah, I remember parts of it.
That's if you remember part of it, then yes, you were there.
It was a bit of a blur. But yeah, I mean, there was like at Gallifrey 1, just meeting people on evenings and stuff like that. And there was one particular evening where I kept having to run back to the room because my laptop was linked back to my home in the UK, and I was remote accessing, making changes, and then sending those files digitally to London. So it was
my God.
It was a horrible weekend, but at the same time a really good weekend.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I didn't get a chance to talk to you there. I talked to Chris Chapman.
Yes,
and
I can't believe that we never actually managed to get a minute and say hello.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I've been to like 10 Gallifrey ones. I'm not at all surprised that I never managed to run into someone at that place because, as you say, it's a blur. But I did see like you and he did a panel right before John Barrowman's, I think, on the Sunday morning or something, and it was like basically a sizzle reel showing off all the various things that were coming soon at that point, and it really put into perspective how much work everyone has really put into a lot of different projects, both the Blu-rays and the animated ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was such a good moment, just being able to show off a clip like that. Even though, I mean, at the time, the BBC never gave me clearance to show that clip because I had said to Charles at the time, I said, right, look, Charles, I'm doing this event in LA. It will be absolutely lovely just to show a clip because people in America won't be getting it till October. So it'd be nice just to have a little clip, a little preview clip. Are you okay with us showing this one? He said, well, I'll have to speak to the right people and get clearance. And I badgered him for ages saying, have I got clearance? Have I got clearance? And then I was there and I just thought, I'm going to do it. If I'm already working on the faceless ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and this is nearly finished. But I was definitely glad I did it because a room, and I mean, what was the capacity of that room?
It's about 1,800 people in there.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, I know that they weren't all there to see recreated Lost, Pat Trout and Doctor Who, because it was Barrowman's crowd, really. But it was nice to be the warm-up for Barrowman. And just having the crowd just laugh at cartoon comedy.
Uh-huh.
Because, I mean, Pat Troughton's quite an animated character, and there's always the worry that a lot of his comedy that he would have put in the character wouldn't translate as a cartoon. But then just that scene was such a good example to show people, and people just laughing at the right moments, and it was just brilliant.
Yeah, the 10 out of 10 and then the 11 out of 10 bit,
Yeah.
I remember, was what got a nice laugh. That's actually a curious thing because people who watch the animated versions sort of think, I think some people who aren't used to perhaps even classic Who or the animated stuff think, okay, it feels a little bit slow, but you are like, if you were doing a straight up original audio animation, something tells me you wouldn't be telling the power of the Daleks over the course of 6 episodes. There would be a lot of like dead space that perhaps doesn't seem dead or downtime during moving images, but when you're having to match your animations with existing audio, that's got to be tough, I imagine, just sort of like to try to keep it visually interesting while still matching the pace of the original version. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, Power of the Daleks definitely suffered from that because there's a lot of moments in there where it would have been more helpful once the whole thing had been delivered to kind of go through it and watch it and say, well, can we snip that section down just slightly and just tidy it up for animation and tighten the edit just so it flows a bit better, so you don't have these awkward poses where there would be a lot of character facial expressions and stuff going on, but an animation sometimes just doesn't work that way. Well, then after that we had Sharda, and Sharda was completely made from scratch for the animated stuff, so we didn't have that problem there. And Macroterra, I think some of the Macroterra was cut, and I can't really recall how much was cut.
Yeah, at the very least, I mean, I'm in North America, so I haven't seen the thing yet. But it was the clothes sprucing up machine that Troughton goes in and gets himself all spruced up, and then goes back in and gets himself dirty. Apparently, that part was excised.
Yeah, I think that's annoyed some people.
We demand every last second of our Doctor Who, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to a point, I'm a completist as well, and finding out that was gone, I was a bit disheartened by it, but at the end of the day, you've kind of got to respect the decision that your employers are making. No doubt there'll be a re-release in the future, and I'll be back in about 20 years, and I'll add it back in for the 19K version that'll be out. So we'll add it.
Well, with all due respect, I hope we're watching the actual version by then. But
yes.
Maybe I'm not holding my hopes up too much.
Well, that's the thing, because I mean, there's always the worry. Well, I say the worry. If the Macroterra turned up just as we'd finished, I wouldn't have minded. and that's me as a fan, because Yeah, I would have happily accepted that, and no doubt they could have released both on one special. But I would really have liked to have seen that turn up at some point, but you live in hope. Yeah, I remember actually when we had the screening for Power of the Daleks, and I was sat at the front doing a Q&A with the audience with Mark Ayres, and someone came up to Mark and whispered something in his ear, and he took off out of the room like a shot. And my initial reaction, which I said to the audience, was, "Has the episode turned up?" No, but it turned out that his lovely 5.1 edit was mixed just to mono.
Oh,
so yeah, it was a sad time for Mark. Bless him.
Yeah, you mentioned Shada, and Mark Ayres, of course, is heavily involved with that, with the music score. And as you say, like, you were not beholden to pre-existing audio or anything like that. So what did that allow a certain freedom, or did it also perhaps create new headaches? I suppose, creating a digital version of something that actually does exist, because a lot of the sets were certainly designed, if not built, and then some of the scenes that were recorded also featured the sets that you would have to recreate digitally.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that did cause a little bit of a headache, there's a moment that's set on Chronotis' TARDIS, which is landed in the Krark carrier, and when the doors open on the live action, you can see part of the Krark set that had already been started to be constructed. So that design existed. And I remember there was a decision to give the Krarks a new design for their ship. I remember pointing out fairly early saying, well, when that door's opened, you're going to see that it's not the same set, it's not the same design, it's something completely different. Mm-hmm. And I was told at that point that the plan was to rotoscope that section out, which basically means someone was going to go through and paint the corridor black. So you didn't see the existing set, which apparently never happened. So then when I was watching it in the premiere, I think, oh god, no, why didn't I just make one corridor look like the like the original? Because that right. would have been something that I would have ended up doing gladly, just so, because things like that annoy me as well, that I'm not getting things exactly right. Because at the minute on the faceless ones, I am just making sure that as much of the original sets are as close as possible, down to props, down to extras leaving glasses, like a pair of glasses on top of a monitor. I make a rod for my own back on these things, because I also remember not that long ago spending about 40 minutes recreating a label of a can that's on a shelf, because
right.
I got a photo that was really decent quality. I said, I can actually make out the brand of that. So then I had a quick Google and then found a really good quality picture. I thought, well, I'll be foolish not to replicate that. And then 40 minutes later thinking, yeah, that's been a waste of 40 minutes. It's going to look nice, but I could have moved on with something else.
Oh, I don't know. There are people, and I'm probably one of them, that will probably look at that and go, I can't believe he actually went to the, the lengths of mimicking that. I this is mildly off topic, but I don't know if you've watched Chernobyl, which I think aired on Sky in the UK and aired on HBO here.
That was a fantastic series, and I know exactly what you probably was about to say, because I watched a similar video where someone had went through and found as much of the original footage from the time, and just the way that they've actually mimicked it and got stuff looking exact. It's just scary.
Oh, it's astounding. The one that for some reason jumped out to me, and it was episode 5 is when it finally sort of kicked in for me about how close to real life this was, is during the point where Jared Harris's character is sort of speaking and everything, and all of a sudden this Russian squatty runs out and adjusts the microphone and he moves it closer to him. I'm thinking, any normal TV production wouldn't bother to show that, but I bet you probably in the original trial footage, probably some Russian squatty comes on and adjusts the microphone, and he gets it right there. And I thought, I applaud you. I applaud you for sticking to detail that much.
Yeah, you've got to respect. You've got to respect that level of detail.
Yeah. So 40 minutes on a can of corn or whatever you were creating.
It was a kind of Castrol motor oil.
There we are. Oh, right, the garage probably. Yeah.
In fact, it's the can that's used in the Chameleon Hangar office that opens a secret door.
Oh, see, it's a prominent can. So that 40 minutes is justified, I think.
And I think it'll be rewarding for some people watching it, because I've tried to hide as many Easter eggs in there as I can.
Oh boy, I look forward to it. I look forward to the Macroterra too. It finally comes out in October, like everything else.
I can't believe that, because I'll be in the final stages of the Faceless ones about then.
Yeah, we've for some reason all of a sudden North America's fallen behind. We haven't. I know as we're recording this, season 10 just came out on Blu-ray. Doesn't come out until October here. We don't even have a release date for season 23, and the Macroterra comes out in October as well. So I haven't seen it. I'm being a good boy, and I'm waiting for the North American version.
Right.
But just based on the scene and the various Richard Bignell's website at Nothing at the End of the Lane had a big giant making of this past week. Going into the making of it, and I always like the Macroterra because it sort of has this prisoner / 1984 vibe to it, and it can probably make for some interesting visuals. Was that a particularly enticing story, I suppose, for you to start working on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of freedom that we had with that. Obviously, none of the episodes exist. We've got some screen recordings here and there of tiny milliseconds worth of footage. But yeah, you could just go to town, and I mean, well, Charles made the decision to do exactly that with some shots, because I know that well, it's not really a spoiler, but there's one shot where you've got two characters walking through a vast cavern of pipes, and it's just thought that would never have happened on that budget back then. Mm-hmm. And it's just nice to kind of give these stories the scale that they deserve, and be able to have more macro.
Right.
Because the nice thing that I can do that people couldn't do in 1967 was or 66. 67.
67 when we aired it, at the very least. Yeah.
And what I can do, what they couldn't do back then, is copy and paste.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you only had a budget for 2 or 3 macro. Well, have 30.
Right.
So yeah, it's nice to be able to do stuff like that. And I mean, out of all of them so far, I mean, I can't really say for Faceless, because Faceless is still heavily work in progress. But yeah, Macro's definitely the favourite so far.
Interesting. Yeah, as you say, you're able to just create your own world. But the Faceless ones is the first one of these now. Shot, I suppose, a little bit because you could create your own new scenes without having to match to audio. But of course, episodes 1 and 3 exist of the Faceless one. So how was it to sort of knowing that you had to adhere to what existed without sort of going off the rails too much? It's
a bit more constricting, but in a good way. Because sometimes I could probably make a lot more work for myself to try and make things grander. Well, I already did that a few weeks back for well, probably is a bit longer actually. So when the trailer or the teaser was released for this, we'll see a bit in Gatwick Airport, and I ended up researching Gatwick Airport from 1967 and finding various photographs. And I was quite amazed at the time just how well the design team did at the time to build parts of the airport in the studio. Yes, I know you can tell it's a studio set, but even things down to there's like a seat and bench that's next to the Chameleon kiosk, and those exact benches are in these photos that I've got from Gatwick check-in. So it's little things like that, and the Chameleon Show's kiosk itself, it looks just like all these kiosks that I can see in other pictures. So it's nice to be able to replicate that, but because you're doing it all as an animation, it doesn't have that closed-in feel of a studio. It just looks all uniform and everything else. And I spent quite a long time, and I ended up building the whole of Gatwick check-in, and it had all these adverts around the top for tobacco companies, and I replicated that down to as close as possible. And then it was only hindsight where then I sent it off to be used in the trailer, where I thought, you know what, over here there's in the UK there's a big issue with showing anything tobacco related on products. So I knew that there would be a request to come down the line to say, can you remove these elements? So that very last minute I changed things and removed one and put an advert for Magpie Electricals, just things that I had lying around, and the one for International Electromatics. And when I was going through the comments on the teaser, I was just amazed just how many people were happy to see Magpie Electricals. It's bizarre. Just a very, very quick change that I decided to do in the space of a few minutes just ended up getting quite a lot of attention on Facebook and YouTube.
The fads. We love spotting stuff like that.
Yeah.
I look forward to it. I know it's coming out in 2020. I'm also going to point out, you don't have to say anything, but, Power of the Daleks, Macroterra, Faceless Ones, all season 4. A double-edged question here, I suppose. Can we expect Evil of the Daleks soon? Or perhaps can we expect all these to show up on a future season 4 Blu-ray release, perhaps?
I've never got a say in what stories are happening. It's just a case of I'll find out very late in the day, because I think I found out about Faceless Ones probably about 2 weeks before Galley, the start of the year. There was a few stories floating around actually, so I'm not sure what the deciding factor was to go to Faceless, but they did. So I'd love to do Evil, because ever since I started doing those test clips on YouTube about 10 years ago or something, I think it would feel like closure. And
right.
I think I've developed my skills quite a lot since then, so I think I could do some... that would be a nice opportunity to elaborate on the sets a bit more, keep everything as close to the original, but whilst just making it a bit more grander. And making the Dalek fight scenes not look like toy models, although potentially doing that as a DVD extra.
Right. Because, the nerds will say, wait a second, where's our toy Daleks here? We expected toy Daleks.
Yeah, so I would absolutely love to do Evil, and I'm sure we'll do at some point, but hopefully they opt for that next. But it would just be the BBC to throw a curveball.
Right.
And as for the Blu-ray collections, I know they want to work through everything, so it would just be logical that they do get to these at some point, whether or not they decide to hold off and wait. Because, they have been pushing these Blu-ray box sets out fairly quickly, and whether they decide to hold off for animations to come in, or they'll end up putting them out without, or perhaps with telesnaps, I haven't a clue. But I know, because from what I've seen so far, there's no media plans to do them, which I think is good for me in a way. means we've got time.
Yeah.
And I've stopped kind of trying to second guess stuff. I'll just, before I know, because to me it's only been a couple of weeks since I started. That's what it feels like. And it's quite scary because it's middle of July now, and my deadline on this is hurtling towards me very, very quickly, with a lot of other things going on as well. So this will be over before I know it, and then they'll say, do you want to do Sharda again, because we haven't got enough of them. And
we need to do another version of Sharda. That's great.
Yeah. So just I'm just as in the dark, which I think is quite nice in a way. It's always nice to be surprised.
We've mentioned toy Daleks, we've mentioned Blu-rays, we've mentioned stuff that hasn't come out in this part of the world yet. So we might as well mention the season 10 Blu-ray, which features new visual effects for Planet of the Daleks. What was it like going completely opposite of what you did for these other ones and doing animation, 3D stuff? You're actually sort of like working stuff into existing footage now.
Yeah, it was lovely just to get back to doing more 3D, realistically looking animation than the cartoon stuff, because I haven't done a lot of this stuff for a few years now. It's all just been cartoon stuff, and you can forget bits, and it's just so nice just to kind of do renders and make stuff look as good as possible. That's not a cartoon, and it was particularly nice to be asked to do this one, mainly just to give Bushnell a break, who did the effects for Castrophil and Megopolis, because he was being worked into the ground very, very quickly. And so I had a call from Russell who said, would I like to update the model Daleks for Planet of the Daleks? And I thought, yes, because that story's got a very soft spot in my heart, because it was probably in 1993 when they repeated these on the BBC, and I was about 5 at the time. And they're some of the earliest memories I've got of Doctor Who, and I've always loved that story. And again, about 10 years ago, I did it on a version on YouTube where I did replace the model Daleks with more accurate looking ones, but I didn't flood them with ice. I wasn't at that stage yet. It's arguable whether I'm at that stage now. But it was supposed to be a month-long job that turned it into a 2-month-long job. Just the render times were just terrifying, because you can kind of plan and say, well, it should take this amount of time. But then you start doing it, and there was about 350 Daleks, digital Daleks in this set that were being flooded with a 3D generated liquid that had to bounce off Daleks and swerve around them and things like that. And I think 4 seconds alone took 1 week. And it was at that point that I started to curse my own decision, because I was only asked to do those shots of the toy Daleks. But then I started going through the episodes saying, well, that looks a bit ropey. I'm sure I can fix that. That CSO looks a little too bright. I'm sure we can tone that down. And then thinking, there's all the objects that Wester picks up, and some of them disappear because of the CSO, so I might as well redo them. I might as well redo the glowing eyes. And before you know it, about 12 shots has turned into 50-something. They're not paying extra to get these done, but it's just, this is the problem of being a fan and working on them, because you just want to fix little things, and you just cause work for yourself.
You would cause a life of regret otherwise if you looked at it and you go, we should have gone back and done this. So I suppose all the work now justifies not having to do it again later, maybe?
Oh, yeah, and getting the box set arriving in the post has definitely justified that and the work. And I've admired these box sets since it first came out, although I was not able to grab Tom's first one that was released. So I have a space on the shelf for that. But yeah, there's so much love that goes into these box sets, and they're so well put together, and it's just lovely to be a part of it.
Well, I mean, this is something that has obviously been announced. It's coming out in September in the UK, and who knows when in North America. But you're also doing the new visual effects for the standalone edit for Terror of the Vervoid. So I'm assuming this is like just the story itself without the framing of the trial sequences around it.
That's exactly right. Again, Charles Norton, who's my producer on the first 3 animation projects, was asked to do this one. So he basically went away with the original studio tapes and put together an edit. And there was a small amount of money left in the budget, and he just sent me an email and said, this might be a bit insulting, but for this, would it be possible to get some new exterior ship shots? Well, of course, it's Doctor Who work. I'm not going to say no to Doctor Who work. So I went away and did it. It was a relatively straightforward and easy job. I say that, but I'm still doing some fixes. In fact, while we speak. Just a couple of things that I need to quickly tweak before they go off to be approved. But yeah, and the bizarre thing is I've not actually, because there's that many projects going on, I'll not really sit and watch the edit. So I haven't actually sat and watched the edit of the Terror of the Vervoids without the trial scenes. I've just went through the parts that I need to fix. So when this does come out on the Blu-ray, I'll be watching it for the first time. That's always a nice thing as well, to kind of be a bit surprised by stuff. Again, it's another season that I remember very early on as a child, because, again, it was 93 and they brought out the infamous VHS tin of Trial of a Time Lord, and I absolutely loved it as a child, and still got it somewhere. Of course, I'm a Doctor Who fan. Anything that's Doctor Who related, I've still got somewhere.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorites. I mean, I watched it slightly earlier than you did, but I saw it sort of in the late '80s, I think, for the first time, and I was just like enthralled by this whole thing. So when it came out, that it was going to come on a Blu-ray, and as relatively early too, or something. It's one of the seasons that isn't necessarily looked as kindly upon by fandom as much as I adore it. So to see it get this full season Blu-ray release. At a time when I think effects on the show really started to excite me a lot more, I think, from obviously the opening model shot, but I just found the original effects for Vervoids very, I don't know, videotape based. It did seem like there was a certain electronic sheen upon them, so I'm intrigued to watch this new edit with your new spaceships effects.
It did have that feel, predominantly because of what was done video. But again, because of the time constraints and the money, so I did do a new version of the Black Hole. Mm-hmm. But then I realised after going through the episodes, sort of skimming through, there's so many shots where it's on the bridge, where you can see it through the window on the bridge. And there wasn't the budget to get someone to rotoscope the characters out. So the Black Hole that was used had to look the same. to match with the shots where it's in the background. So I ended up trying to clean up as best as possible the original and give it a little bit of a cosmetic makeover, but not to make it look too different from where you'll see it in other shots.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm a little bit constrained with having to make sure that it matches with that. But at the same time, when you look at the effect closely, I always thought that it was a bad effect, but then looking at it, I thought it's actually not as bad as I remember. And being able to tidy up footage from a newly transferred tape, it makes me appreciate it a lot more. And I am actually really looking forward to watching that as a standalone edit. So I have been half tempted to kind of watch it on the MP4 previews that are done now. But I think I am going to wait until the Blu-ray hits. And again, as I say, this story, I mean, Vervoids, I absolutely loved Vervoids when I was a kid. I remember getting the tin signed by Colin Baker, who was in my hometown at the time, when it came out in the theatre. And a relative of mine knew someone who worked at the theatre, so they managed to get me into his dressing room to get a few autographs and a picture taken. It's so nice that it's come full circle now that box set that I treasured as a kid, I'm now a part of that in a small way.
Gosh, it is nice. I do, you started doing that. You watched the show obviously as a kid, and then started doing your own stuff, self-taught, and now here you're working on the range. I mean, Ben Pickles, for instance, is the young fan who started toying around with stuff on YouTube with mashup videos with Doctor Who and Sherlock, and now he's like doing the opening title sequence of Doctor Who. There's this great sort of fan community. I still remember the line that Peter Capaldi said when he was announced as the new Doctor on that live special. It says, "We all make Doctor Who," and it's people like you and other people who have been fans of it and now work on it that really make that true.
You're 100% agree with that. Well, it's most of the people who work on Doctor Who at the moment are people who grew up with it, and it's influenced people in every shape and form. And yeah, it's this never-ending cycle of people who watch it grow up, work on it, people who watch it grow up, work on it.
Right.
And yeah, I hope to keep doing it as long as I can.
Yeah, well, I also hope that you can do it as long as you can, but I do hope that you can find at least a little bit of break between some of the projects. But who knows? There might be an email waiting for you in your inbox right now that's saying, "Hey, guess what? Roll on with Evil of the Daleks," and then it all begins again. Who knows? Anyway, Rob, Ritchie, this has been a delight. Thanks for all your work on the DVDs and Blu-rays, and thanks for this.
Oh, it's been great. And if I'm ever asked back to Galley, we'll have to have a proper chat.
Absolutely.
It's been lovely talking.
Thank you, Rob. Rob is one of the long line of great folks who work on Doctor Who stuff, because they're all everyone's a fan. Everyone's a fan, it seems, who works on Doctor Who stuff, and everyone's very talented as well. So it was nice. It was nice of him to hop on the call, even though he's busy working two jobs, one of which is bringing old Doctor Who back to life once again. I said this at the outset of this show. Next week is Fluid Links. Our 699th episode of Radio Free Skaro will be Fluid Links. So you know the drill, and if you don't, here's what the drill is. You ask us or submit your questions and comments on Twitter using the hashtag Fluid Links, and then we compile them and we draw some randomly on the episode and hash them about and solve nothing for 3 to 5 minutes at a time, and everyone goes home happy, or at least just not angry. It's the perfect compromise, is what it is.
As long as
quietly frustrated.
Yeah,
as long as everybody goes home.
That's the main thing. Is that as long as everybody.
Did you
gets
get out of
home,
my house already? Just leave. Thank you.
That is the goal of this podcast. So next week, Fluid Links, we hope you will join us for that. So until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in San Jose.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.